Welcome, Phobophiles. This is Tales of the Midnight Hour. I'm your host, Nicole Nightfall, here to guide you into the shadows and through the midnight hour. Prepare yourself for tales that will haunt your dreams and conjure your deepest fears. Listen closely as we step into the darkness together. Join me in the telling of Spirit of Ojibwe, the Thunderbird, where Minnow strives to save a defiant camper from the Thunderbird, a majestic spirit bird that reigns over the skies.
As the caretaker of Spirit of Ojibwe Lodge, I take great care to teach each guest to respect our traditions and the land. I am responsible for the safety of each guest amid the beauty and danger of the Hiawatha National Forest. I ensure each guest understands the rules that will keep them safe while exploring the beauty of our surroundings. Upon arrival, I meet with each visitor, sharing the rules that have protected generations through these woods. For one particular visitor, a photographer, I took extra care, understanding the eagerness of photographers to find the perfect shot, perfect angle. I was carefully stressed that he stay within the marked boundaries of the camp and trails. The following morning went smoothly as I observed him several times around camp. I watched him photograph the reflections of spring leaves on the lake and the wildflowers that border the hiking trails. He had great enthusiasm for his craft. Although I was initially worried about him, he joined our group activities. On a guided canoe trip, he explored the ancient petroglyphs etched along the shoreline. His camera clicked away, capturing the details of the petroglyphs and the beautiful landscape that reflected on the water below. I watched him paddle through calm waters, and it gave me hope that he would respect the rules. As the afternoon bore forward, I lent my attention to a more pressing matter. An unexpected hiker had arrived with a broken ankle. I gave the hiker what medical attention I could and called into town for help. I kept the hiker comfortable until help arrived and then returned to my duties. By then, dusk had settled in. Rays of sunlight painted the sky in the deep hues of evening. There was a sudden shift in atmosphere, and a low moan of wind rolled through the ancient woods. A huge crack of lightning split the horizon, illuminating the sky with veins of electric blue and brilliant white. Thunder reverberated through the forest, echoing off the ancient trees. Raindrops splattered on the roof of the lodge, gradually building to a rumble as the storm rolled in. The air was charged with anticipation, the storm a cacophony of forces that clashed in a display of power and beauty. I watched as my guests raced for cover. I did not, however, see the photographer. I was reluctant to venture out into the storm, so I hesitated. But when 10 minutes had passed without any sign of him, I had no choice. Muttering to myself, I grabbed a flashlight and an employee to accompany me. We braced ourselves against the wind and stepped out into the darkness. Fear gripped my heart as the storm intensified. Wind and rain raged about us. Every muddy footstep was a battle against time. Lightning arched across the sky, illuminating the forest. We were allowed only quick glimpses of our surroundings, trees swaying hauntingly in the wind. My mind raced with thoughts of the photographer, lost and alone against the wrath of the storm. The howling wind drowned out our calls to him. The downpour of rain diminished all hope of reply. Despite my horror, a sense of duty propelled me. Each step felt like I would plunge into the unknown abyss. The air crackled with tension, and I could sense an impending doom. Another flash of lightning struck. In that moment of blinding light, I saw his silhouette atop a hill, defiantly photographing the storm. Furious, we ran up the hill, hearts pounding. I was determined to bring him back to safety before the tempest claimed him. As we neared the hilltop, we saw the Thunderbird in all her glory, a majestic bird of electrical energy. She soared high above in a dazzling display of light, crackling with electricity. In a terrifying instant, she dove down, her brilliant form illuminating the sky. I rushed for the photographer but was no match for her speed. She went in for the kill, streaking downward with incredible speed. Her body blurred into a blazing lightning bolt that struck the photographer with a sudden and devastating force. When we finally reached the photographer, the damage was done. His body lay charred and smoking in the rain. His life, once full of enthusiasm, extinguished. The camera he had clutched so passionately was now a mound of melted plastic, its metallic parts melted and entwined with his hand, fused together by the heat of the strike. His eyes were solid white, and his skin was covered in 1,000 purple veins, mimicking the pattern of that fatal lightning strike. The smell of burnt flesh and electronics permeated the air. The scene was a chilling display of his reckless defiance. As we stood over his charred remains, I couldn't help but feel angry. The spirits of this land are brutal, and they demand respect. This tragic incident was just one example of their wrath. It would become another lesson on the consequences of ignoring their sacred boundaries. Though the final lightning strike was behind us, we decided to wait until morning to retrieve his body. We walked back in silence, only the gentle patter of raindrops to be heard. With heavy hearts, we entered the lodge, leaving behind an eerie calm that matched our despair. I sat by the fireplace to dry and felt the weight of the night's tragedy, a combination of sorrow and failure. Despite my warnings, despite my efforts, I couldn't shake the feeling that I could have done more. Early the next morning, I called into town for help, and the photographer's body was recovered. As expected, the cause of death was confirmed by authorities: electrocution. I gathered the remaining guests and gently recounted the night's tragic event. They were visibly shaken and huddled in intimate clusters to discuss amongst one another. Their faces were drawn with grief and disbelief. It was a sobering moment, and I sensed the group now understood the seriousness of the rules and had respect for the boundaries. I arranged to have a small ceremony at the lake after breakfast. Everyone came. A little girl brought wild flowers. We gathered in a circle at the edge of the lake and offered prayers and blessings. We prayed for the photographer's spirit, acknowledging his passion for capturing the beauty of the world. The lake, calm and reflective, seemed to absorb our grief, offering only silence in return. In our moment of silence, the presence of my ancestral spirits was undeniable. Their presence reminded me that this was not the first nor the last of such events. Over the years, there have been many others who met untimely fates when venturing into the wilderness. Each loss underscored the importance of respecting the boundaries. The Chippewa spirits, whose wisdom and protection I invoked during the ceremony, stood as sentinels, their presence a testament to the bond between us and nature at Spirit of Ojibwe.